Have you ever seen someone carry a person for years, pray for them, protect them, pour into them, and then one day, they just vanish from that person's story? That's what happened with Cassi Davis and Tyler Perry. She was more than Aunt Bam. She was his backbone behind the scenes. And now, after years of silence, Cassie's finally saying what really happened. And folks, what she confessed about their fallout isn't just loud or messy, it's deeper than that. It's spiritual, it's personal, and it just shifted how we see Tyler Perry's empire forever. Now, when Cassi Davis speaks, it hits different. Not because she's chasing headlines, not because she wants pity, but because for over 2 decades, she was the soul behind some of the most iconic stories in Black entertainment. Her face, her voice, her presence, they carried something honest, something we trusted. So when someone like that finally breaks their silence, you don't scroll past it, you lean in. For millions of people, Cassi wasn't just Aunt Bam or Ella Payne. She was comfort. She was that auntie who said what needed to be said, with love, fire, and truth. She showed up in our living rooms at a time when faith-based Black storytelling barely had a seat at the table, and she helped build that table with Tyler Perry, brick by brick, laugh by laugh, scripture by scripture. But here's the thing. For all her loyalty, her contributions, and her spiritual grounding, Cassi disappeared. Quietly, no headlines, no public statement, just gone. And in a world where everything gets posted, tweeted, and spun, her silence was loud. Now she's back. Not to drag anybody, not to cancel, but to finally say what her spirit's been holding for years. Because it turns out what happened behind the scenes wasn't just a creative disagreement or a scheduling conflict, it was deeper. It cut through the fame, the friendship, even the faith they once shared. Now before the studios, the private jets, and the billion-dollar empire, Tyler Perry was just a man trying to get people to show up to his stage plays. And Cassi Davis was one of the few who did. She believed in his vision when it was just folding chairs, handwritten scripts, and faith. She wasn't just an actress, she was part of the foundation. What made their connection different wasn't Hollywood chemistry, it was spiritual depth. Cassi wasn't just another cast member reciting lines, she was praying behind the curtain. She was laying hands, speaking life, quoting scripture in dressing rooms when the pressure felt too heavy. To Perry, she wasn't just a co-worker, she was someone he leaned on, spiritually and emotionally. Someone who helped him hold on to his faith while the industry tried to mold him into something else. People forget, Tyler Perry's early work was soaked in faith. His plays weren't just entertainment, they were sermons with a punchline. And Cassi carried that same heartbeat. You could feel it in her performances, in the way she blended humor with conviction. Her characters felt real because they were coming from a place of real belief. There were even whispers, quiet ones, that maybe their bond was deeper, maybe even romantic. They both denied it, and honestly, it never mattered. What mattered was the loyalty, the way they showed up for each other, the way they protected something sacred in a business that rarely honors anything sacred. Cassi wasn't just playing Aunt Bam, she was holding the room together. While Tyler chased the dream, she helped anchor the spirit behind it. And that's what made the eventual silence between them feel so heavy. Because when you lose someone like that, it's never just about work, it's a soul shift. For a long time, Cassi Davis was everywhere. You'd turn on the TV, there she was in House of Payne, you'd watch a stage play, there she was standing next to Madea, BT specials, red carpets, behind-the-scenes interviews. Tyler Perry couldn't move without Cassi somewhere in frame. She wasn't a guest in his universe, she was part of the DNA. And then she was gone. No press release, no farewell tour, no tribute post, just silence. Like someone muted the spirit of the show and hoped nobody would notice. But people did notice. Her absence wasn't quiet to fans who had grown up seeing her as the moral compass of the Tyler Perry brand. The timeline is blurry, but pointed. Around 2018, Cassi started stepping back. By the time Madea's farewell tour rolled around, she wasn't on stage. When Perry launched new shows like The Oval, Sistas, and even rebooted House of Payne, her name wasn't in the credits. No cameos, no voice notes, nothing. For 4 years, one of the most recognizable faces in Black television simply vanished from the empire she helped build. Rumors filled the gap. Some said it was health-related. Cassi had publicly shared her struggle with Bell's palsy, which affects facial muscles. Others speculated about creative differences, maybe a financial dispute, maybe something personal. Still, the most loyal fans felt something wasn't adding up. And what made it worse was that Tyler Perry, the man who always had something to say, never once addressed it. Not a line. Not even a vague acknowledgement. The silence became the story. And in a space where truth usually leaks fast, the fact that no one said a word, that's when people started wondering what kind of fallout could be strong enough to break a bond that deep. Now, Cassie did an interview where she exposed everything, allegedly. At first, when the podcast clip hit the internet, most people didn't even realize it was Cassie. The lighting was soft and the setup was quiet, but the moment she opened her mouth, you felt it. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. This was someone finally unloading a weight she had carried for years. She didn't start with drama. She didn't come to accuse. What she said came slow, like she was still choosing her words carefully, not out of fear, but out of love.
People think Tyler Perry and I were just co-workers, she said, her voice steady but tired. But the truth is, he was like a brother to me. And sometimes family hurts you worse than strangers.
That one line set the tone. This wasn't about scandal, it was about heartbreak. She spoke about a season of distance, not just physically but spiritually. A drift that started quietly during production meetings. A sense that something sacred had shifted. She tried to hold on, prayed, fasted, stayed quiet for the sake of the legacy, but the silence started to break her spirit. At one point, she admitted she cried through episodes of House of Payne, knowing fans saw a smile while she was grieving something they couldn't see. She wasn't just acting through pain, she was acting through the unraveling of a friendship she thought was unshakable. What hurt most wasn't anger. It was watching someone she believed in slowly drift away from everything they had once stood for.
I kept quiet for too long, she said. I wanted to protect him, but it nearly broke me.
And in that moment it became clear. This wasn't a tell-all, this was a release. Not to hurt, but to heal. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't make noise. It just sits with you, quiet but heavy. That's what Cassie was carrying.
And when she finally said the words, "We lost our way," you could hear years of unspoken sorrow packed into that one sentence.
She wasn't bitter. That was the part that cut the deepest. You could tell she still had love for Tyler, still believed in the man she once called her brother. But what broke her wasn't a single betrayal or a shouting match. It was the slow erosion of trust, of purpose, of spiritual connection. She talked about being in meetings where she no longer recognized the work, shows that felt more about shock than substance, storylines that veered away from faith and leaned into sensationalism.
She asked him directly, "Where's the heart? Where's the healing?"
And his answer, "This is business now," told her everything she needed to know.
That was the moment the gap between them stopped being creative and started being spiritual. She stayed quiet at first, gave it space, and hoped the friendship would course correct. But it didn't. And in the silence, something inside her started to decay.
"I was grieving," she said. "Not just my health. I was grieving a bond I thought couldn't be broken."
That's the kind of heartbreak people don't see. The kind that doesn't make headlines but leaves you wide awake at night, wondering if what you built ever really mattered. The internet been divided on Cassie's confession. It wasn't a scandal to cancel, it was just real. And that's what made it hit so hard. Some fans stood up instantly. They called her brave, said her voice was long overdue.
"We love Tyler," one user wrote. "I am so proud that she is the person I've always believed she was. She has been such an encouragement and source of spiritual strength through her professionalism and work."
Another wrote, "She did the right thing. Speak truth to power."
But not everyone welcomed her honesty. There were people who called her ungrateful. One comment that gained traction read, "He helped her career to the utmost, now she thanks him by doing this. I expected more from her." And Tyler Perry been dead silent? Nothing. Not a post, not even a side comment. And sometimes silence says more than a statement ever could. The man who built his brand on family and forgiveness had nothing to say when one of his spiritual sisters said she was hurting, and in that quiet you could feel it, something had shifted. Not just between them, but across the space they once helped build together. And now, with Tyler Perry facing serious legal heat on a completely different front, Cassie's words feel even heavier. People are starting to wonder what else has been buried under the surface, and if the empire he built on faith and family is cracking at the core. Her truth was quiet, but it shook something loose. So now the question is, will this be a turning point, or just another Hollywood silence? Do you think Cassie did the right thing by speaking up, or should she have stayed quiet for the sake of the brand? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're in for more real stories that hit deeper, make sure to like, share, and hit that notification bell.